Welcome back, everybody. Nathan Wilson, Driving Dreams. Let's talk connectors. So just getting started on the complete wiring of this 64 Lincoln here. I'm going to try to do more videos on this build than I have in the past because this is kind of a friend of mine's car, and so I'll have a little more time. Not going to be rush like typical. So wanted to just kind of go over some of the options for connectors. I think I've touched on this in some other videos. But what's best? Can you do generic brands? What style is best? Some of it is preference. I think generally in the automotive world, I think the general consensus is the Deutsch style connectors, and that's these right here. They're very sturdy. They, like, when you put them together, you have a hard time pulling them apart. There are a couple of videos on YouTube there's a lot of videos showing how to do these and how to wire them up, as well as these other styles as well. And then you'll see people kind of pulling on them and tugging on them. I think I saw in one video where a guy was kind of pulling, but not like the Project Farm, has done a real torture test type video. Like, he does pretty scientific stuff, just guys, saying, hey, this is why I like these connectors. But basically, if you look at the automotive world, the racing world, people building race cars and drag cars and stuff, they're using these connectors more than anything. Not to say that any of the other ones are bad. So I don't really know of anybody wiring these Lincolns from scratch the way that I do. I'm sure there have been a couple, but it's not many. So these Lincolns, as you know, especially the convertibles, they are a completely different animal. There's a lot to it, so that's why you don't see it. Like, you see people who build Mustangs and Camaros from scratch, and they just buy a painless wiring kit, and there's stuff that's pre-made and pre-labeled. Well, with a Lincoln, you don't have that. There's hardly anything pre-made for these cars, or any reproduction parts. And then with the wiring, especially with the convertibles, there's just nothing. It's non-existent. Nobody makes any wiring kits or anything like that. And if you just try to get a painless wiring kit and start, you'll end up with some. It's it's not for the average, faint of heart. So these are the original style connectors that Ford used back in the day. They're kind of hard to come by. It's hard to find them. And then the problem is that in order to make something like this work, like if you're just trying to patch into the factory plug, you can buy these, you can find these, but you have to cut and splice into them. So for instance, you'd have to cut this right about here, and use a barrel splice or whatever your technique is, solder, whatever, and make a connection, and then run your wires from that to whatever gauges or pumps or whatever it is that you're supposed to be running. So I do have a bunch of these whenever I can find them. I go to a lot of swap meets and things, and that's where I typically tend to find some of these more rare connectors. So I have them for the instances where I'm trying to repair just one thing on a Lincoln, and like this is kind of like a door. I think the passenger door window switch is like this on a 66, 67 Lincoln. So if I need to do that type of repair, I can use that. But obviously, if I'm starting from scratch, I want to use what I would say are better connectors, and you can get them more readily. They're not cheap. The real Deutsch style, however you want to say that, are very expensive. I think this was like $519 or something. So, and another thing I wanted to touch on in this video is this is basically the same kit at about half the price, like $250 or something like that, or $200 even. May even have been under $200. So I did buy the real set at one point just to do my own kind of comparison and put the pieces next to each other, put a couple connectors together, pull on them, see how things work, see the difference in the pins. And honestly, in my opinion, there's not enough difference to justify paying 2 or 3 times as much on the actual name brand made by Deutsch or whatever. I always feel like I'm saying that wrong. So you can go with a more generic kit. I'm not endorsing anybody or anything, but that's this kit on Amazon, and it was relatively inexpensive. So this style connector here I've used quite a bit in the past before I kind of graduated up to those, and I still do use them on a lot of stuff. Like, you know, I was doing some custom stuff on my ATV the other day. I use these. These are weatherproof, just like the Deutsch ones, just like these. They're just a different style, so you can see, like the styles say this is a 2-prong plug. The benefit to these I found is with these connectors, these are the regular pinch-on kind of connectors. There's a little more versatility in the size of wires that you can use with these plugs versus with this style. You have to get specific size connectors. So you can see, like for instance, that one versus, I guess it would be this piece. You see the difference here in the beefiness of that. Obviously this is way bigger, way beefier. This is the same brand, it's just for different size. This is for like 12 gauge wires, and this is 14 and 16. So it can get a little bit expensive with these, and again, they're way more expensive than this style. So if you're kind of on a budget and you want to make some decent connections, there's nothing wrong with these. I think these are pretty good connectors, and for the most part, like if you're not, you know, we're not drag racing, we're not circle track racing, there's not going to be a lot of crazy stuff going on, and you know, pulling on wires and stuff like that. You can get away with these quite a bit, and they are weatherproof. They have, you know, these little boots that you put on and everything. These, same thing. I'll show you. I guess I must have put these together at some point just for storage purposes. So you'll see this is a little bit different style, and this is going to be for a little bit smaller gauge wires, but you still can, there's still some pretty good flexibility in that. And so then you'll see these are kind of like some of the old Chevy connectors that you saw. I don't know if you can see that, but they're like a square plug, something kind of like this. Get it to focus. So it's just, they're just different styles, so they're good for different things. And then it kind of becomes preference and then budget as well. I think these were less expensive than these, and then these were way more expensive. So it just depends, you know. And then this is a bulkhead connector that is similar to this style of like Weatherpack, Delphi style connectors and stuff. So that'll be to go through the bulkhead, possibly on this plate. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with this design here or change it up a little bit. I've done this a couple times in the past. I think I'm actually going to go with a little more modern setup for the relay and fuse boxes. I'll show you guys some videos on that. And then this is a Deutsch style, same thing, like that bulkhead connector there. It's just the different style. So we're probably going to use this on this car just to kind of stick with the theme and have all the same style of connectors. So this will just be everything that goes from the inside of the car to the outside of the car and the engine bay and everything. It'll probably go through this plate most likely. I'll make the connection, make a hole, make the connection in this plate. That's what I've typically done in the past. Now that plate, it replaces in the original footwell on the passenger kick panel. Way down in there you'll see where your stock plate was, and it had some circuit breakers and stuff and a couple of relays, and then the stock style connectors were something similar to this, and they went through the firewall, and so it, you know, just gives you a way to get a weather tight, clean connection, you know, from inside the vehicle to outside the vehicle. So just wanted to share that, you know, kind of real quickly. There's a Molex connector in there. You'll see those sometimes. I think these are a little bit outdated. They can be decent for, you know, as long as it's not anything that's going to come in contact with weather. These are easy to use. And the main thing with these style, like all of these styles versus, you know, buying this type of plug, like a lot of the Lincoln ones are like this, or they'll have even 4 wires, and you could buy a boat plug. If it's a 4-wire plug like this, you could buy a boat plug, or you can buy one of these and you can cut them and you can splice them and then just run your wires to whatever you're running. But with any of these, if you're making your whole thing from scratch, and say you're running from, from your fuse box to your, AC switch or something like that, and you want to have a plug where you can disconnect the switch, and if you ever need to work on anything like that, you're running your wires all the way to these plugs, and you don't have any splices, and that's obviously what you want. Anytime you can avoid any type of splices, pretty much when I'm done with one of these cars, I can't think of really anywhere there would be a splice. I try to avoid it. I'm running fresh wires from all my fuse blocks and terminals, and I'll run straight from this bulkhead connector all the way to the relay for the AC compressor, for instance, or for the fan motors on the radiator. So just wanted to try to keep this quick, discuss some of the options. One of the things I wanted to kind of share is the difference in the quality, in my opinion, on the kind of knockoff brand of this style connector versus this one. The same here. These are kind of like a Delphi knockoff, and I bought a few of the real Weatherpack ones, like name brand ones, and there wasn't much difference at all. So you can get away with sometimes a lower brand name of the original style connectors in that same style. So hope that video helps you guys and gives you some ideas, and maybe upgrade some wiring on your next project, take it to the next level, and I'll see you guys next time.